History did not collapse because of wars, plagues, or political drama. No. Half of history fell apart because someone translated one word wrong and everyone else panicked. People think translators are quiet, peaceful book people. Absolutely not. These linguistic warriors have accidentally started wars, rewritten religions, embarrassed empires, and convinced entire civilizations that raisins were a form of deep philosophical truth. School never tells you this. Movies never show it. But history is basically a giant international group chat where every message was run through a broken translator and nobody bothered to double-check. One tiny mistranslated word. One typo. One scribe having a bad Monday. And suddenly an entire nation thinks they are supposed to attack, surrender, eat cake, fear fish, or build statues for absolutely no reason. So today we are diving into 22 of the funniest, dumbest, and most world-altering translation errors ever made. Errors so chaotic they changed borders, religions, battles, and entire cultures. Let us start with the one that confused the medieval world for centuries. 1. The Holy Wind Incident. For centuries, people read the Bible and confidently believed the Holy Spirit was actually the Holy Wind. Yes, wind, as in a divine breeze. As in the sacred draft of God passing through a window. Medieval scholars argued about it for years. Did the holy wind blow blessings? Did it knock over candles? Was it supposed to smell nice? The truth was simple. A single monk mistranslated the original word. One tiny slip. Suddenly the entire continent thought salvation came from atmospheric movement. This is what happens when your entire religious doctrine depends on a guy with a candle and a questionable dictionary. 2. The Treaty of Witangi disaster. One treaty, two versions. Both saying completely different things. Mbori chiefs signed the Mbori version, believing they were keeping their sovereignty. Meanwhile, the English version said they gave it up entirely. This was not a small translation mistake. This was a plot twist written by someone who understood lost in translation as a political strategy. Entire land rights, laws, and histories changed because two translators were not even in the same emotional universe. Imagine signing a rental contract that says, "Welcome to your home" in your language, and we own everything now. Thanks in theirs. That is exactly what happened. A diplomatic disaster born from one of the most dangerous sentences ever written. Hey, close enough. 3. Russia was not dancing during a tense diplomatic standoff. A critical message was sent. Russia is mobilizing. High alert. Tension rising. Potential war incoming. Except one translator misread mobilizing as mobilizing in a festive way. So the report reached diplomats as, Russia is dancing. Imagine a room full of generals trying to decode whether a nation was preparing for war, or hosting a very aggressive street festival. By the time they fixed the translation, everyone had already panicked, argued, and drawn 3 separate flowcharts to understand Russia's choreography. All because someone squinted at the wrong syllable. 4. Translate. Server. Error. One Chinese restaurant wanted English signage. Simple request. They emailed a translator. The translator never responded. So they copied the placeholder text from the translation software itself and printed it in giant letters on the sign. The sign proudly read, "Translate server error." For months, tourists walked in assuming it was the restaurant name. Some thought it was experimental art. Some thought it meant fusion cuisine. But no, it was just a digital cry for help that accidentally became branding. Humanity's finest example of letting the computer do the thinking. 5. Thou shalt not kill was not exactly that. Everyone quotes the commandment like it was delivered straight from the clouds with perfect grammar. Thou shalt not kill. Clear, firm, simple. Except the original phrase was closer to thou shalt not murder. Not all killing. Just the really intentional, malicious kind. That one shift in wording launched centuries of arguments, debates, sermons, and awkward dinner conversations. Entire moral frameworks were built on a single mistranslation. Imagine basing your entire legal system on autocorrect. That is literally what happened. History, written by someone whose vocabulary options were kill, murder, and a whichever. 6. Chicken without bones. A Korean company wanted to advertise boneless chicken to Western tourists. Simple concept. Simple meal. Simple sign. They translated boneless chicken literally, as in chicken that never had bones. People stared at the sign, questioning biology. Was this a new species? A miracle bird? A terrifying chicken evolved for convenience? Locals laughed. Tourists panicked. The legend of the boneless chicken that lived spread across the internet. All because the translator did not pick the right word and accidentally invented a horror creature. 7. The Japanese army that charged the wrong direction. In the middle of a heated conflict, a Japanese commander sent a crucial order. One word decided the entire battle. Withdraw, a calm, strategic retreat. But the translator botched it. He sent out the order as advance. So instead of stepping back, the army sprinted forward like they were trying to win Employee of the Month at a war factory. They ran straight into enemy fire. Commanders stared at maps, wondering why their troops were suddenly feeling brave and suicidal at the same time. A single mistranslated verb turned strategy into chaos. One word, thousands of lives. History rewritten because someone forgot to double-check their kanji. 8. Here be lions becomes here be laundry. Medieval mapmakers were dramatic. Whenever they reached uncharted territory, they wrote, "Here be lions," a poetic warning, a vibe of adventure. A medieval way of saying, honestly, we have no idea what is there. Then one scribe mistranslated the phrase. He confidently wrote, "Here be laundry." For decades, copies of the map circulated with random corners of the earth labeled as medieval laundry zones. Explorers stared at the map wondering if the ocean contained giant floating washing machines. Sailors argued whether the mysterious lands were full of monsters or full of folded shirts. Nothing says human history like scaring people away from entire continents because someone misread their Latin. 9. Nothing to fear but fish? Franklin D. Roosevelt delivered one of the most iconic lines in history. Nothing to fear but fear itself. Powerful, elegant, inspirational. Except in some early international broadcasts, the phrase got translated terribly. One version came out as, "Nothing to fear but fish itself." Whole audiences sat there wondering why the President of the United States was declaring psychological war on seafood. Diplomats asked each other if fish was a metaphor. Newspapers printed analysis pieces about underwater threats. All because one translator confused fear with fish in their language. A global motivational speech became a marine biology warning. 10. The manuscript where Jesus betrayed himself. Some medieval monk was copying a religious text late at night, tired, cold, probably hungry, trying not to fall asleep on the parchment. He accidentally replaced Judas with Jesus once, then again, then continued copying as if everything made sense. The result was a manuscript where Jesus betrays himself, hands himself over, and then feels surprised by his own actions. Scholars later found it and tried not to scream. A single name swapped, an entire story derailed. One sleepy translator unintentionally turned the Bible into a psychological thriller. 11. NASA lost a spacecraft because nobody agreed on units. The Mars Climate Orbiter was supposed to glide beautifully into Martian orbit. Billions spent. Hundreds of scientists. Years of planning. And then a tiny translation error happened. A team used imperial units. Another used metric. Nobody converted anything. Nobody checked. Nobody questioned why the spacecraft was approaching Mars like a drunk pigeon. The result? The orbiter slammed into the planet at full speed. Years of engineering destroyed because someone forgot 6th grade measurement conversions. This was not science failing. This was humanity proving it could lose a spaceship the same way people lose TV remotes. 12. The Raisin Philosophy School. A medieval monk was translating Aristotle. Pure wisdom, deep logic, foundational Western philosophy. Except the Greek word for reason looked suspiciously close to the Latin word for raisins. So he translated entire passages as if Aristotle believed the universe was powered by grapes. For decades, scholars debated why the human mind depended on dried fruit. Was it symbolic? Nutritional? Cosmic? No. It was just a tired monk mixing up two words that should never be neighbors. One small error turned centuries of philosophy into a grocery list. 13. Let them eat cake was never cake. Everyone knows the quote. Marie Antoinette hears the peasants have no bread and supposedly says, "Let them eat cake." Iconic. Cold. Cruel. Except she never said it. It came from a bad translation of an older phrase meaning something closer to, "Let them eat paste bread," a cheap flour mixture. Basically the medieval version of, "Give them instant noodles." But one translator saw the word. panicked, and picked the fanciest pastry he could think of. History received it, shrugged, and built an entire reputation around a dessert she never mentioned. One mistranslation turned a queen into a meme. 14. The Nova car that would not go. Carmakers love launching internationally. Except Chevrolet rolled out its Nova model into Spanish-speaking countries without checking one tiny detail. Nova in English sounds sleek, cool, space-like. In Spanish, no VA means it does not go. Imagine selling a new, expensive vehicle literally named the car that refuses to move. People laughed. Commercials tanked. Dealers struggled to convince buyers that yes, it does in fact go places. It became a marketing legend. A simple translation issue that made a whole car sound like it had emotional problems. 15. Romans mistranslated foreign speaker as savage barbarian. The ancient Greek word barbaros originally meant one thing: someone who does not speak Greek. That is it, just a linguistic label. A polite way of saying their language sounds different to us. But Romans translated it literally as barbaric, primitive, savage, violent. And suddenly entire civilizations got labeled as wild beasts because Romans did not like how their consonants sounded. Cultures were dismissed, histories erased, wars justified. All because someone took a neutral word and translated it like they were writing a bad Yelp review. A mistranslation that shaped Western identity for centuries. 16. Vikings thought peace meeting meant raid invitation. Somewhere in medieval Europe, villagers sent a message requesting a peace meeting, a friendly sit-down, a negotiation table, milk and bread. The messenger carried it to the Vikings, but the Norse translation twisted it into something closer to, come visit, bring weapons. The Vikings showed up excited for battle. Villagers showed up with snacks. The misunderstanding escalated into one of the most awkward massacres in recorded history. 2 languages, 1 badly translated phrase. 0 survivors on a soft diplomacy team. 17. Ceasefire became ceasefire. A French commander sent a crucial order during a chaotic battle. Ceasefire, stop shooting, calm down, take a breath. But the operator translating the message heard it wrong and wrote, ceasefire. So troops, instead of stopping the attack, grabbed torches and set things on fire with renewed enthusiasm. Villagers panicked. Commanders screamed. Maps burst into flames. Diplomats later stared at the battle report, wondering why a peaceful ceasefire turned into a full barbecue. A single letter turned peace into pyromania. 18. The Armored Emu myth. When the Great Emu War happened in Australia, international newspapers tried to translate the reports quickly. One foreign journalist translated Emu War as Emu's war armor. Suddenly, the world genuinely believed Australia was fighting giant bulletproof birds. People drew cartoons of emus in metal helmets. Politicians asked if the animals were military trained. Kids imagined them as feathery tanks. The real story? Just birds running fast and soldiers missing their shots. But the mistranslation was so good people still repeat it today. History's most overpowered poultry moment. 19. House of Pain Hospital Brochures. In the early 2000s, a tourism office used early machine translation to convert their medical guide into English. They wanted to reassure travelers that local hospitals were safe, modern, and welcoming. Simple goal. Simple brochure. But the translation tool saw the word hospital and confidently converted it into House of Pain. Tourists opened the brochure and immediately reconsidered their vacation plans. Travel agencies got calls asking if medical care involved torture chambers. Doctors had to explain repeatedly that they do not in fact run a medieval pain dungeon. One machine translation glitch turned modern healthcare into a horror movie. This is what happens when you trust early 2000s AI with your marketing. 20. The Millennium that became the millipede apocalypse. A medieval scholar translating religious prophecies misread the Latin term for millennium, 1,000-year age, a symbolic era, a major theological concept. But he translated it as millipede. Yes, the bug, the many-legged dirt creature. For years, communities panicked about a prophecy that claimed the world would end when the giant millipede arrives to purge the earth. Priests debated it. Villagers made drawings. Artists created nightmare creatures with endless legs and divine anger. All because one translator mixed up a grand cosmic timescale with a bug he probably hated. Translation error. Tiny. Historical impact. Massive. 21. The tax that became an attack. A royal messenger once carried a simple decree across a kingdom. A routine announcement. The king wanted to collect a new tax. Nothing dramatic. Nothing violent. Just money. But somewhere between the palace and the village square, the translator botched a single vowel. Tax became attack. Villagers heard the decree and immediately armed themselves, assuming the king was about to invade his own people. Chaos exploded. People barricaded streets. Guards panicked. Diplomats fainted. By the time the correction arrived, the village had already declared a very confused rebellion. A single mistranslated word created a revolution nobody ordered. 22. The gift that meant poison. The German word gift means poison. Simple, clear, lethal, but English speakers kept hearing it as a present, a lovely box with a bow, a kind offering, a birthday surprise. This linguistic nightmare led to centuries of awkward diplomacy. Germans would say, "We bring a gift," and English visitors would smile politely instead of running for their lives. Merchants misunderstood labels. Travelers panicked in apothecaries. One poor ambassador accepted a ceremonial gift and nearly fainted when he learned what it meant. Two identical words, opposite meanings. Infinite chaos? Humanity ended this list the same way it started, by proving we should not be trusted with language at all. History is supposed to be a grand story of empires rising, cultures thriving, and civilizations learning great lessons. But after looking at these 22 disasters, it is very clear we learned absolutely nothing. Half of world history was shaped by sleep-deprived scribes, confused diplomats, broken translation software, and people who thought close enough was a valid linguistic strategy. We did not just miscommunicate. We rewired entire nations by accident, so here's the real question. Which translation error destroyed your faith in humanity the most? The raisins? The armored emus? The Jesus betrayed himself incident? Or the global war on fish? Drop your pick in the comments. Like the video if your brain feels a little betrayed and a lot entertained. Subscribe if you want more stories where history tripped over its own shoelaces, and remember, humanity does not need enemies. We have translators.